Alright, so it's time for this month's pickups video, and I'm really excited for this one because the games that I picked up really ran the gamut from really chill indie fare all the way up to really classic horror games, and I'll just go ahead and spoil it now, all of them ran absolutely great on the Steam Deck. However, before we jump into all that, I did want to explain why I'm double mic'd right now. Normally, this is the microphone that you're hearing, and you should be hearing it right now if I've edited this correctly, and this is what you should be hearing moving forward. However, I do not have a boom arm for this microphone yet. That should be coming later today, and right now I just really wanted to test it out and kind of see how it was going to work. And the reason for that is even though I really like this microphone, this one has a much richer sound, and I'm hoping that's what I can use moving forward, but I also have to make sure that I can, make sure it stays in frame without me having to hold it like this, which admittedly looks kind of goofy. So, long story short, I leveled up to 40 over the weekend. My parents surprised me with a birthday bash with a bunch of my friends, which I was not expecting, and my dad, having a long history in AV production, surprised me with this microphone as a nice upgrade for my videos here. So hopefully this will work moving forward, but yeah, all that being said, let's just go ahead and jump in with the first game that I want to talk about, which is Zombie Army Trilogy. So here's the thing, I only had a passing familiarity with this game. I'd seen the box art for it for the Switch version, but I didn't even understand that this was a collection of standalone DLCs that were an offshoot of Sniper Elite V2. Which, that's a game I feel like I played briefly before, but my memory's a little bit hazy. All you need to know is that you don't have to have played Sniper Elite to enjoy this, because it is straightforward Nazi zombie fun right from the jump. Taking place in an alternate version of World War II, and with Germany on the verge of its downfall, Hitler raises a zombie army as a last-ditch effort to turn the tide against Allied forces. Although, to be honest, I did not care much about the plot of everything unfolding, mostly because this isn't my first zombie Nazi rodeo, and I was ready to get down to business. Thankfully, its third-person tactical shooting feels really, really good. Not the best I've ever played or anything, but there's enough variety here that is consistently pretty thrilling stuff. You'll be equipped with a primary rifle, a secondary weapon like a shotgun or LMG, and a sidearm. Beyond that, you'll also have access to a range of explosives like trip mines or grenades to manage crowd control when things get dicey. Plus, it's incredibly satisfying in those random moments where it slows down the action so you can stylistically watch your bullets' real-time damage in all of its visceral glory. And speaking of slowdown, you do have a focus ability to control your breathing and heart rate to more easily line up a shot. Now naturally all of this is made easier with friends or randos since it is a 4-player co-op game, but even messing around in it solo, I was able to fare pretty well for the most part. Oh, and quick side note, I was surprised to see that you can play as the original Left 4 Dead characters for some reason. I'm not complaining, I was just surprised to see Bill pop up since lately I've only really been seeing him in Dead by Daylight, but I digress. On the performance front, I was able to bump up the graphics detail to Ultra and still keep a pretty consistent 60 FPS, save for the occasional dip during transition moments in the game. You can tweak the remaining settings if you want to get more nuanced about it, but I took a set it and forget it approach and had no complaints to speak of. If you're a fan of horde mode, third-person shooters, or just want to wreck some zombie Nazis, it's a pretty good time so far. Now is it $45 good? I don't know about that, but if you can find it on sale like I did, where apparently it will drop as low as $5 from time to time, I'd say it's absolutely worth it at that price. Speaking of zombies, let's move on to, well, I wouldn't quite call it a classic per se, but it is a solid zombie action game if nothing else, and that would be Resident Evil 5. And in the grand pantheon of top-tier Resident Evil games, I don't think it quite stands shoulder to shoulder with some of its peers, but it is a very fun game, and notable as a co-op action horror experience. Plus, you have to give it a little bit of a break considering it did have to follow in the footsteps of Resi 4, which is no small task. Taking place 5 years after the events of Resident Evil 4 and set in West Africa, Chris Redfield and Sheva Alomar are working for the Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance and trying to stop a bioweapon from being sold on the black market. Naturally, you can expect some twists and turns though, and 5 takes a lot of the elements introduced in 4 and expands on them, making for a pretty solid 12 to 15 hour adventure. And I hadn't touched this game in years, so it was a whole lot of fun to jump back in. Lining up shots over the shoulder is still as tense as ever, and Chris can still dish out a satisfying variety of up-close attacks when your enemies get too close for comfort. The movement can admittedly feel a little bit stiff as it bridges that gap between fluid movement and tank controls, but it's something you can adjust to pretty quickly. Plus, I think if they'd made that character movement too fluid, it probably would have stripped out some of the horror elements. The most notable feature in Resident Evil 5 is the ability to co-op the entire game with a friend online, or the AI can take over for your partner, and it's pretty seamless. Even when I was capturing footage on the deck, I had no problems finding people to play with, as plenty of randos kept popping up to join my game whenever I completed the next checkpoint, so yeah, it's safe to say that there's still plenty of love for this game out there. And that's actually why I picked it up in the first place, is I actually had 2 of my best friends separately ask if I wanted to play Resident Evil 5 in the same week. Technically, I already have a copy of this for the Xbox 360, but since it doesn't have crossplay, I decided I would go ahead and pick up a PC copy as well. Steam Deck performance is predictably rock solid, which makes sense considering this is a 15-year-old game at this point. It's just one of those games that lands in that 6th and 7th gen sweet spot where the visuals look good, but are hardly taxing for any modern hardware. And again, I wouldn't call this the best Resident Evil in the series or anything, but if you are a fan of the more action-oriented titles, it still more than holds up, and considering Capcom regularly puts the Resident Evils on sale, it's definitely worth snatching up if you can find the deal on it. And next up, let's move on to a game that is a little bit lighter in tone, though distinctly darker in its presentation, and actually does borrow some horror elements from games like Resident Evil, and that would be Animal Well. Animal Well is a non-linear Metroidvania from developer Shared Memory, and is the first game published under Video Game Donkey's label, Big Mode. And right off the bat, the first thing I noticed before even launching it is that the entire game is only 33 megabytes, which is just insane to me. To be fair, the game isn't as big as some other Metroidvanias because the developer wanted to focus on density rather than raw geographical area to traverse, but still, it's impressive just seeing a game of this scale with these sort of modernized 2D effects is still able to come out of the gate just so optimized immediately. From the jump, it's pretty clear that you're in for a unique experience with Animal Well. Its crunchy, dreamy presentation is backed by some pretty reserved audio that places more of a focus on environmental sound effects than anything else. It's really impressive just how many distinct sounds that you notice while out in the wilds of its world, but even the basic sound effects for things like running, jumping, and climbing are just super charming in an early Namco sort of way. And I don't think I've had this much fun just taking in a bunch of retro video game sound effects since I first played No More Heroes. On the visual front, Animal Well dazzles with a color palette that feels both muted and vivid somehow, and I'm absolutely sure that this game will shine on an OLED Steam Deck. Beyond the raw visuals, the world of Animal Well is chock full of little visual flourishes that enhance the presentation overall. Things like subtle scan lines, particle effects, reflections, and smoke all go a long way towards drawing you into its gorgeous but hostile world. And that's where the real fun begins. Each new area is overflowing with curiosity. Sometimes a room will look to be completely empty while secretly concealing a hidden passage. Other times you'll find physics-based platforming challenges or be tasked with working out whether a new creature you discover is friend or foe, which is important considering for the most part you're a pretty vulnerable little blob. Now that's not to say you're totally helpless or anything. Because of items and power-ups that you find, you'll definitely discover some fun new abilities to aid you in your journey home. I'm still way early in this, but it's one of those games that I'm committed to protecting from my backlog because it really does feel like something special. I mean, there's a reason it's holding steady at overwhelmingly positive on Steam with just shy of 10,000 reviews as of this recording. On the performance front, it's butter smooth, and again, I wouldn't doubt for a second that if you have an OLED Steam Deck, this will be one of the prettiest games you can throw at it. So if you're a Metroidvania fan looking for a top-tier effort in the space, you should definitely give this one a spin. Next up, let's stick with the nature theme, but lighten it up with the outrageously colorful and chill Loddlenaut, which I picked up thanks to Humble Choice last month. Also, speaking of, I did get a few games that I definitely don't need right now from Humble Choice, so here are a couple of Steam keys on screen for some games that I did not need if you are interested, and good luck. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get back to Loddlenaut, which again happens to be a super fun nature-based indie game with smooth controls and also a joy of discovery. In Loddlenaut, you'll be taking on the role of an underwater ecological cleaner. It's bright, colorful, and some of the most fun that I've had cleaning things in a slice-of-life game like this since Powerwash Simulator. Although narratively, it's a little bit more beefy as you do slowly learn more about the company you work for to do the cleaning, and get to know your supervisor David more as you continue to clear out the various ocean regions to which you've been assigned. Gameplay is pretty straightforward in that you'll swim around, clean up goop and debris, and then use what you've collected to either craft helpful items, or refine what you've collected into various bits that you can also use for crafting. Naturally, being an underwater game means that you'll have to keep an eye on your oxygen, although if you run out, you won't be traumatized in a drowning Sonic or Mario sort of way. Rather, you'll just be safely returned to your home reef and lose a few items. But here's the thing, the prospect of running out of oxygen dissipates pretty quickly after you've started your cleanup duty. At first I panicked and barely made it back to an oxygen ring the first time that I went out to start doing more cleaning. However, as I started playing more cautiously, I noticed that as I cleaned some of the underwater flora and fauna, that some of them started producing air bubbles. Now the game doesn't explicitly tell you this, so it was a pretty pleasant surprise when some of the pressure to stay close to a recharge ring completely went away, and I realized I could basically farm my own oxygen. Not only is that smart design for a game like this, but I kinda like the subtle messaging that if you take care of the environment, it will in turn take care of you. Now all of this wouldn't matter of course if the environment were difficult to navigate, but thankfully Loddlenaut keeps it pretty straightforward. Left bumper to boost, then A to ascend or B to descend. And that's great because it's not always easy to make underwater mechanics feel good in a video game. Anyone who's ever suffered through a Zelda water dungeon can probably relate. So it was definitely helpful that navigating the waters of Loddlenaut was simple and satisfying. More so considering it's a gorgeous game in that cartoony, a short hike sort of way. And just like a short hike, it also lets you bump up the chonkiness of those pixels if you want, if you prefer to have your underwater adventure to look a little bit more deep-fried. About the only thing I really took issue with so far is my supervisor Dave, mostly because Dave seems like an absolute company man narc, and I don't appreciate his constant interruptions or reminders when I don't have the right tool for cleaning a certain part of the ocean. He's the worst, and while you can disable him entirely in the menu, I'm going to begrudgingly allow him to stick around for now in the interest of appreciating a more complete initial playthrough. Steam Deck performance is reasonably solid. It doesn't quite keep a solid 60 FPS, but it's close enough that you're unlikely to notice, since anytime I did hit a part of the ocean that was more taxing on the system, it still stayed above the mid-50s. Ultimately, it's a low-stress underwater adventure that should easily satisfy anyone who's looking for a chill, summer jam kind of experience. And personally, I can't wait to keep floating around and cleaning up more goop, and just seeing what other kind of things my guy will be able to build later on. And while we're on the subject of floating around in an ultra-colorful environment, finally this last one is more of an experience than a game, and it began its life as an early Annapurna Interactive title on the PlayStation 3, Vita, and eventually the PlayStation 4 way back in 2014, and that would be Hohokum. And if you're ever looking for a game to toss into the games as art debate, Hohokum definitely fits the bill, and honestly I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. You play as a floating serpent of sorts called the Long Mover, but I only know that because I looked up the Wikipedia entry, which also explained what I'd already learned in my time with it so far. Hohokum is a non-linear game that offers no tutorial, objective, collectibles, world order, and honestly I'm not even sure if it has a win condition as we think of it. The developer aimed to create an experience that's not completely devoid of objective, but the real aim here is that you enjoy the experience for what it is and however it makes sense to you. That is completely antithetical to the way most of us approach our video games, and yet I found myself enjoying it. Sometimes I'd discover other weird little creatures or find little bits of environmental activity. Other times I would find that the scale of the environments would get completely flipped, and while I felt like a gigantic sky serpent in some areas, in others I felt like a microscopic organism gliding between dimensions. I won't spoil how the controls work, since I think that would sort of detract from the aha nature of what Hohokum weaves for its players, but it's definitely fluid, and at no point did I really feel frustrated with the game. Rather, I just kept enjoying floating around and seeing what each new portal to another area had to offer, and taking in a wide range of vivid colorscapes. And naturally, it all performs just dandy on the Steam Deck, and I'm sure it's even more appealing if you're rocking an OLED model. In short, I think it's safe to say that if you're the type of player who craves explicit instructions and clear objectives, you're probably going to hate this. But if you're the sort that loves a nonsensical romp that's just sort of texturally interesting, I guess, Hohokum's a curious little oddity that's probably worth exploring. Alright, and that's it for this one. Not every game that I picked up in May, obviously, just the highlights, the games that I enjoyed the most and spent the most time with, over the past couple of weeks as I was trying to put together this video and see what games I was most excited for. So, what about you? Did you grab anything great recently? If so, please do let me know in the comments below. Also, thank you so much not just for hanging out here on the channel, but also sticking with me as I try weird new production stuff like this, because obviously I'm always trying to improve things here on the channel, so yeah, I definitely appreciate that. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you on the next one.